Welcome back to our next edition of CBB Review Studio. I'm Dan Siegel. That's Ariel Puderman. It is March, and you know what that means. There's still some games to be left in the regular season, but a lot of conferences have moved on, specifically in the mid-majors, and we are already here. We are going to be previewing our first 12 mid-major conference tournaments one by one, just giving our discussion, our picks as to who's going to win, and any dark horses, any underlying storylines that we feel like you should know as you are watching these games, whether you've been locked in all year or you're just starting. This is the place for you. Please subscribe. We're going to have so much content coming out throughout March Madness, so please subscribe. But without further ado, let's get started. So here is our first bracket. We're going to pull them all up on the screen. Some of the graphics that the conferences released are harder to see than others. This one probably in that category, but we got the Ohio Valley Conference. Ariel, I want you to take us away with anything that you believe when you see this bracket.
Yeah, this was an interesting tournament overall, just because UT Martin was kind of controlling the conference for most of the season, and then they kind of fell as of late, and Morehead State and Tennessee State really rose at the end of the season to kind of capture those top two seeds. In terms of the bracket, pretty standard. We'll talk about a couple of them later, but I'm going to go, even though they have struggled, they've gone 2-5 in their last 7 games, I'm still going to go with UT Martin. I trust their balanced scoring. They've got a lot of foreign guys who could really step up. They're a little bit older, more mature. They're built for these kind of situations where you have to win a couple games in a couple days. So even though they're kind of trending in the wrong direction, I still trust them. But really, any of those top 4 teams could win. So I'm curious to see if you have the same.
Yeah, shout out Jeremy Schulman, second-year coach for UT Martin Skyhawks. He's done some great things there, just bringing in a whole new roster. I do like UT Martin. Like, this team absolutely defends their butt off despite not scoring a ton. They're 9th in three-point percentage against, 24th in two-point percentage against, top 50 in blocks, top 30 in forcing turnovers. I like UT Martin. I am afraid, though, of their recent skid. They just got smoked by Tennessee State, and that is why partially that I'm going to go with Tennessee State, the 1 seed, to win. I'm going chalk here. Tennessee State hasn't been to the NCAA tournament since 1994, and they just had their first 20-win season since 2012. So first-year head coach Nolan Smith's done a great job there. I am looking forward to hopefully – I don't think they have some crazy nickname. I think they're just like the Tigers or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's going to be my team. I'm going chalk in the Ohio Valley. Next up, we got the Big South and Ariel's favorite team here, the High Point Panthers, on the one line up on top. Do you think that High Point's going to win this bracket? Do you see somebody kind of playing spoiler? I think they're pretty clearly the best team, but Winthrop is kind of there, and then everybody else is kind of terrible. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's been a 2-man race the whole season, 1 and 2. So if you're even thinking about any of those other teams, you would really need a one-of-a-kind upset for any of those teams besides High Point and Winthrop to win. For Winthrop, I think the big question is whether Logan Duncombe is going to play. He's been probably the conference player of the year and one of the better mid-major players in the country, but he suffered an injury in the game after High Point, and they haven't looked great since then in those 2 games. They lost one of them, and then they eked out a win to close the regular season. So if he's not playing, I don't really think it's even close. Even if he does play, I think High Point's still comfortably the favorite. So I'll go with the 1 seed here to go to the tournament in back-to-back years.
Yeah, High Point's kind of interesting. They do a lot of the same principles with their new head coach who they promoted, Flynn Clayman. They promoted him under Alan Huss, who got a promotion. But, yeah, like, I think that it's basically last year's High Point team, maybe slightly worse, but they're also playing with tempo this time. It's really interesting. Winthrop does worry me with Logan Duncombe being hurt. I mean, this is basically their March Madness, but at the end of the day, like, he was in a boot last game, so it's not looking great. And he was the reason, like, that he's the traditional back to the basket big. He's the reason they beat High Point. I think they went over. Did they beat High Point? I know he went for 28 and 23 against.
Yeah, that was High Point's only loss in conference.
High Point's only loss. So, yeah, I don't think they could get it done without him. Even if he's banged up, I'm going to go with High Point in this one. All right, our next bracket here, we've got Arch Madness, the Missouri Valley, and yeah, this one kind of a similar, a pretty standard format. You got 11 teams, 5 of them get first round buys. I think this one's wide open. What do you think?
I completely agree, especially after Illinois State just beat Belmont today. First of all, it makes me sad to see Drake in the 9th spot. I mean, this was a team that was so dominant so many years in a row. And we talked about in the preseason how the only reason we really rank them in top 100 in our CBB rank is just because we'd be idiots if we didn't, just because of how good their success has been. But we weren't in love with that roster, and it's really shown. They haven't been the team we thought they would be. I don't even think they beat Southern Illinois, honestly. One game I'd be really excited for is Illinois State Bradley, especially in Arch Madness. 2 teams that are pretty close to the Arch, so 2 good fan bases there. That would be a great environment. But I'm still going to go Belmont, even with that loss. And they're just such an efficient team, top 10 in 2-point and 3-point percentage. They've got a lot of great players, a great coach as well. Before the loss day, you could even make a case they're an at-large team. That's how good they've been this year. But I think that's out of the question now. But regardless, I still think they're the best team in the Missouri Valley, and for that reason, I'm going to go with them to win this.
Belmont is never a bad choice, especially considering they haven't lost a single game by double digits this entire year. So Belmont's not a bad choice. I think I'm not going to go with Belmont. I think Illinois State, is also another like honorable mention I want to talk about. If I'm looking at the bottom of the bracket, they're kind of the team I'm looking at. They've had a bit of a disappointing year, but they have this guy Chase Walker, who again, like he's been good, not great this year, a little banged up, but he could kind of I think he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented player in this conference. But actually, I'm going to go with none of the teams we've mentioned at all. I'm going to go with the 5 seed here. I'm going to go with UIC. I think,
right.
Yeah, I think if we're going to pick a team that is a worse seed, this is kind of the bracket to do so. If you want value in any of those conference tournament pick'em pools, this is probably the conference to do it. UIC has not made the NCAA tournament since 2004, so I'd love to see them do it. But they've completely just turned on a switch halfway through the season. They're not big, but they're just super physical. They attack the glass relentlessly. I'm not worried about fatigue because they just play a lot of guys. So I think they're a team to set up well and win these 3 games in 3 days and get some March. Like I said, first time since 2004. And then we got our next conference tournament. This one also starting on March 4th. This one is the Atlantic Sun.
Yep.
And yeah, so Austin P and Central Arkansas split the regular season title here. Another standard bracket, like 12 teams, 4 teams, first round buys, nothing too wonky there. We'll get to the wonky ones. What do you think here? Do you think it's one of the regular season champions? Are you looking at someone else? What do you think?
I am looking at one of the regular season champions, and it's going to be that 1 seed, Central Arkansas. Big reason why is just how they finished the season. 8-1 in February, best record in the ASUN. If you put a filter on Bart Torvik between February 1st to today, they're by far the best team in the conference. So you got to ride the momentum. They get the bye. So for that reason, I'm going to go Central Arkansas to make it. I think their first time since Scottie Pippen was there, I think I read. So it's been a while. So pretty cool if they do make it that they can achieve that milestone.
Yeah, I can't recall any recent time they've been there. I'm actually going to look at Queens as my winner. Grant Leonard, just an electric head coach on and off the court. Really like him. They're the 3 seed down there. Again, this is their first year of tournament eligibility, so that would be really cool to see them get in right away. They took some absolute beatings in the non-con to prepare, play some really good teams, but still, this team could score, and I've noticed that. Like all their starters plus their first guy off the bench, all of them are in double figures. I'll say a spoiler team is probably Lipscomb because another team with 6 double-digit scores. They've hit double-digit threes in most of their games, and they have hit 20-plus threes twice this year. So like if there's a team that just goes absolute bonkers randomly, it's probably Lipscomb. They do get that first round bye. That's huge. But yeah, I'm actually looking at the 3 and the 4 in this one. So again, the 1 seeds are always the favorites or usually the favorites, but there's very rarely a year where it's like so many 1 seeds advancing. So that's why I think it's worth discussing. Let's move on to the Summit League. And This one is a 9-team tournament. You just got the play-in to play North Dakota State. Do you trust North Dakota State here? They took the regular season title. They have lost a game, I believe, recently. I think it was actually to St. Thomas, but they went 24-7, 14-2. Very clearly the best resume on the board here.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and they definitely are the team to beat. And they will probably beat Oral Roberts or Kansas City by 25 in that first game. But I still like the Tommies. I know last year was their first year where they were eligible to make the tournament, and they couldn't do it, even though they were the best team during the regular season. And I think this year that they're going to get done. They're such an efficient team, one of the most efficient in the country from a shooting standpoint, and they don't really turn the ball over as well. And those are usually two things that lead to a lot of good things, a lot of victories. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go with them. I wouldn't be surprised if North Dakota sneaks one, but I think it's between those top two teams. I think it's a chalky bracket, and I think that St. Thomas pulls it off.
I agree with everything you said. I'm also going to go with St. Thomas over North Dakota State in the finals. Yeah, just to confirm, they beat North Dakota State by 20 in the second to last game of the season. I actually looked a lot into St. Thomas. They remind me of Louisville, but like if Louisville actually executed their stuff better and things went as well as people planned, like the Louisville of the mid-majors, if everything went well. Just looking at their profile, they shoot a lot of threes, but they're a lot more efficient, and they're the top 2-point shooting team in the nation. Just a lot of shots around the rim. Name to watch is Nick Janowski, fourth in the league in points as a freshman. So definitely watch out for him. That's a name that I would monitor. And then we got the SoCon here. So I think, I'm not going to lie, like I've been a SoCon apologist for a while. Not even an apologist. They've just been a pretty good league. This year, though, it's been pretty unintriguing, and apologies for you guys on YouTube, but this is pretty impossible to see on the screen. So we'll spell it out for you, whatever teams we're looking at. But Ariel, who do you think wins this? Are you going chalky with ETSU, or are you going elsewhere?
I'm not going chalky, but I am picking one of the top teams. I just want to start by saying I was the #1 Furman fan of all time in the preseason, just by how well they ended last year and the overall talent and how they play basketball. I was in love with this team, and they just let me down time and time again this year. So I'm going to stay as far away from Furman, and I'm actually going to pick the team they're going to lose to in that quarterfinal game. It's going to be Samford. In February, they went 8-1, best record in the conference, top 10 defensive rebounding team in the country since then, top 10 field goal percentage, top 15% 3-point percentage. And they've got a guy named Jaden Booth on the team, a former JUCO guy, came up, and he's averaging 21 points a game this season. Those are the guys that are built for these kind of tournaments, the guys who can score 25, 30 points when needed. And Samford has one of those guys. So that's why I'm going to go Samford to win this conference.
Yeah. This one I definitely contemplated a lot. I think I am ultimately going to go back to chalk. I'm going to go with the 1 seed, East Tennessee State. I know they did lose to Wofford and Mercer in their final 2 regular season games, but I like what I've seen the most out of them in the full body of work. They got this front court and Cam Morris and Blake Barkley, a former Northwestern Wildcat, and they've just been pretty much showing up every game. ETSU has not made it since the tournament since 2017. I think that's when they had known NCAA tournament maker Steve Forbes as their head coach. But yeah, you got to look out for Furman. I'm going to go with ETSU regardless.
I'll quickly add, watch out for Western Carolina, 6-game winning streak heading into the tournament, maybe a sneaky team. So just you heard it here first if they make some noise.
All right, we got to move on to this next bracket. There's a lot of discourse this morning for whatever reason. But I honestly love the setup of this. This is the Sun Belt, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory if you're looking at it on the screen. Now, the thing to know about the Sun Belt, besides this crazy format, is the fact that there was a 6-win tie for second place. So I think everybody, it was either 10-8, maybe it was 11-7, whatever record it was. All the tiebreakers determined a lot of these teams' face because they had the same record, yet they were in different configurations in the ladder because of just tiebreakers. So And like we've seen I think this is the second year of this format, but fatigue is definitely a thing. We've seen teams make mini runs and then just run out of gas. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on this configuration of teams? And we don't have to go over why we love this format. I think we both agree on that. But what do you think of this 2025-26 Sun Belt?
I don't like this format. I like it. I like it if it's a situation like the WCC where there's a clear top 2 to 3 teams every year and you're rewarding those. But when you're in a situation where last year we had a 4-way tie for first place, this year we have a 6-way tie for second, and you got a team like Arkansas State who has to win 5 games in 5 days while having the same conference record as Marshall, who gets a free pass to the semifinals. That just doesn't feel fair to me. So hopefully,
It's just
they go away from this.
It's turned down in practice. I don't know. I
don't rewarding the teams that do better in the regular season because the whole point of this is you reward the teams who did better in the regular season, but you're not in this case because you're punishing Arkansas State for having the same record as Marshall. And in a one big league, it just doesn't feel fair. I agree for those teams like ULM who won 1 game in conference play, having to win 8 games or 7 games in 7 days. But a team like Arkansas State or South Alabama, who are in a good position heading into that last game, and then now they find themselves having to win 5 games in 5 days. I just think that's not fair for them.
Yeah, I think the way I like it is just I think a diversity of different conference tournament formats and being creative with it is it's just what I like. I don't like these cookie cutter, like this is how you run a 14-team tournament. This is how you run a 10. This is how you run a 12. I think it just makes college basketball, makes conference tournament season more interesting. But anyway, go ahead with the teams that you like and don't like in this little bracket.
Yeah, one team I really like, and I'm actually going to pick them to win. I know I just talked about how unfair it is, but Arkansas State, the number 7 seed, they're the hottest team coming into the tournament. I keep going back to since February 1st because I feel like that really matters. This is when the teams are really at their best. They've been the best team in the conference. They had a really good month. They're a really balanced scoring team. They don't really have that guy who could just dominate, but they have 5 or 6 guys who can go off on any given night. And yes, I think the fatigue is going to be an issue, but I think all the teams ahead of them have bigger flaws than them that Arkansas State's going to really exploit. And for that reason, I'm going to go with them. One team I also really like is App State. They don't shoot the 3 at all. Like, they're terrible, but they shoot at a decent rate, but everything else they're pretty good at. So I think that they can take advantage of that. I don't like Troy.
No.
I've been up and down with them all season. Every time it feels like they should win a game, they drop one and vice versa. So I feel like in this situation, they're in a position where they should win and they're just going to drop the ball like they have all season. So Arkansas State, I know it would be crazy for them to go 5-5, but I think they have it in them. And so I'm going to pick a huge upset here and go with the 7 seed. Also, just quickly, last 2 years, they finished as the runner-up in the conference tournament. So for them to finish back-to-back runner-ups and then win, that would be pretty cool for them to do.
Agreed on that. Yeah, I don't like Troy. They just shoot a ton of threes but don't make them, and then they're bad defensively. Same with Marshall. They're another just poor defensive team that I don't think will allow them to win this conference tournament. I was looking at Arkansas State, but it was just too many games, too many days. I kind of backed out of it. I think they're going to win a couple, but I think they're going to lose to Coastal. Coastal Carolina is my ultimate conference winner here in the Sun Belt this year. They've won 5 of 6, and I've talked about the defensive flaws of Marshall and Troy. They are probably the best defensive team in the Sun Belt. They got this guy, Nadrick Pete, who is averaging more blocks than field goals per game this year. So very clear defined role for him. And then they got their offensive metrics are just not good, but they got some incredible shot making. This guy, AJ Dantzler, is 74, made threes this year. So I'm going to go with Coastal, but yeah, this will be fun to follow. There'll be a lot of discourse. There's already been a lot of discourse. I'm excited to kind of have some healthy debate as it usually goes on social media. And yeah, I just like the uniqueness, but I think that's been enough on the Sun Belt. Let's go to the next one. We've got another weird kind of format. We've got the Horizon League. Do you like the little situation here where, to explain, that you have basically, you can divide this bracket, I guess, visually into 2 parts. You got the play-in to a standard 8, I guess it's a standard 10-team tournament. And then they kind of reseed so that the top 3 winners of those 5 advance to the semifinals, and then the 4th and the 5th best seed have to play another play-in to get to the semifinals. Again, I think this is a very creative way. I think an even better way than the Sun Belt to kind of reward regular season success, but it does set up for some interesting situations potentially.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of a nightmare to read if you don't know what you're looking at, but it makes sense as they play the games. So I think they did a good job there. I think reseeding is always a good idea too, just because you're rewarding the higher seeds, so they don't get in a situation where they're playing the 4 seed and the 10's playing the 11 seed just because of madness there. I like it in the actual tournament, but in the conference tournament, I think the reseeding is a good idea. Who am I going to pick to win? I'm going to go with Robert Morris to go back-to-back. They won last year. I think they do it again here. They've won 7 in a row to end the season. They've got 2 amazing players in Deshaun Goody, who I think is the player of the year, and Ryan Prather. And then Andy Toole. I mean, he was a guy who was on the hot seat forever. Now he's going to make back-to-back tournaments. Maybe he gets a step-up job, but that's a later situation. I think Robert Morris, while Wright State is going to be a tough team to beat, the fact they only have to wait till the final to play them, I think that's going to benefit them, and they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I don't trust Wright State. They've lost 5 conference games. They've recently lost to Robert Morris by double digits. I love Robert Morris. I'm going to agree with you there. They've got this league, the Horizon League, actually has 4 teams in the top 50 in 3-point percentage. So teams that could light it up. Those teams are Wright State and Robert Morris, like we just mentioned. Also Green Bay. And also Cleveland State. Green Bay is Green Bay, and Cleveland State is there in the playing game. So nothing really much to be said about them. I will say, I hate to do it, and I hate to give Green Bay any extra attention because they already get way more attention than they need to get because of Doug Gottlieb as their coach. But I think they can be frisky. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but I think they can be frisky.
I think they'll make the semis.
I just don't think they'll win it because they have too many defensive issues, and I don't trust Doug Gottlieb as a coach. But they've been competitive pretty much every game this year. So
I completely agree. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about them.
Yeah. All right. So it looks like we're on the same page in the Horizon League. Let's see if we get some disagreement here. We got the NEC. This one's always a crapshoot just because of the way the tournament is formatted. About 8 teams, win 3 games. Pretty simple. Before we talk about this format and these teams, I do want to give a shout out, or I guess a parting ways to St. Francis, Pennsylvania, the second of the St. Francis's in the last 5 years to have their program. I think St. Francis, PA is actually just completely abolishing their basketball program. I don't even think they're dropping down. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they won the tournament last year. I was in the building in Central Connecticut State, and they won. They made it to the dance, and now they didn't qualify for the NEC tournament, and that is it for St. Francis as a basketball program, right?
Yep.
All right. What do you think, anyway, of these 8 teams that are playing in the NEC tournament?
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this conference. I think LIU's got this one pretty under control. They dominated the regular season. They won by 3 games, and I think they could have won by even more. They're just the best team. Their guards are ridiculous, so give me the Sharks. I think this is their first conference tournament championship ever, so congrats to them. I'll have to double check that, but either way, it's a big accomplishment for a school like that.
Yeah, and they always get the home court advantage throughout. All of the games are on home courts. Love that. I do want to say, I'm also going LIU, but I do want to say Devontae Hackett has put up 30 and then 40 points in back-to-back games in the last 3 games. So just a fun player to watch. Stonehill's not a good team, but just wanted to point that out while we're on this bracket. All right, we got 3 more for the day. We're going to go to the MAAC, and MAAC basically ran away with this league. I'll start here. I think that they are going to win this conference tournament. Joe Gallo is one of the more under-the-radar coaching candidates. Again, I hate treating them as only coaching candidates and not coaches for their current schools, but it's just the reality of the situation. What I will say, though, for MAAC is they are horrible at rebounding, and that's been problematic pretty much in a lot of their close games and their losses. I looked at some of the tape against Siena and Fairfield, who are the 2 best rebounding teams in the conference. good thing neither of them are on MAAC's side of the bracket, but that's definitely something to keep in mind. But I am going to go MAAC. I will say I do have a dark horse, but I'll let you go first and kind of see if you're on the same page.
Yeah, do you know who is a great rebounder on that side of the bracket? Quinnipiac Del Recco Gillespie. He's second in the country in rebounds per game, so maybe that'll give him trouble. But I agree with you. I think MAAC's going to win this conference. Siena, I think they're my sleeper team. Really well-coached team. A team that I really wasn't expecting to be this good, even though they were one of the preseason favorites, but they've proven me wrong. I know Matt's a big fan of that team just because of their coaching ties, but at the end of the day, I think MAAC's the team to beat. Kavir Kennedy's an unbelievable player. I think he's the best player in the conference, and he's a player that is going to get a lot of attention in the NCAA tournament if he scores 20 to 25 points. I don't think they're going to win a tournament game, but I think it's one of those situations where he comes out as a winner because he holds his own against these Power 5 teams. So I'm going to go with MAAC in this one.
Yeah, I actually have my sleeper team as Mount St. Mary's, the 6 seed playing the 3 seed Siena. They've won 5 of their last 6, just been shutting teams down recently. So bottom of the bracket will be interesting, I think. I think there'll be a couple interesting games, but yeah, I'm going to go with MAAC as well. All right, we got 2 more. This one I think deserves a little bit of discussion outside of the actual bracket itself, but just bracketology-wise, real quick. You could say this is a very similar to Sun Belt type of format. West Coast Conference has obviously been doing it for longer. But yeah, Gonzaga and St. Mary's secure the 1 and the 2 respectively. Santa Clara is the team we got to talk about. They're the 3 seed. First off, you got to take care of business against Pacific or Seattle or whoever you're playing first. Do you think they could realistically beat St. Mary's, lose to Gonzaga, and still make the tournament? I'd say yes, but they need help. It's not a guarantee. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think even then it's pretty low possibility just because of that Loyola Chicago loss that I've talked about. That's going to really bite them, having that Q4 loss. But it seems like every team on the bubble just keeps losing games that they should. So that's actually helped St. Mary's because while they've done the same, they'll have less opportunities to make bad losses. They only have good opportunities left besides the Pacific game. But if you're at Santa Clara, you can't be looking at this as we just have to beat St. Mary's and we're in a good spot. You have to look at this like we have to win this conference tournament. And with Braden Huff out, even though Santa Clara did lose to Gonzaga, I think that there is more of a chance for them to win than maybe in years past if they can get past St. Mary's. But just in general, St. Mary's, I mean, they're looking as good as you can be right now. 8 straight wins. Mikey Lewis has just been on another planet recently. You saw what he did against Gonzaga and Santa Clara. And with Braden Huff out, they just haven't looked as good against those top-level opponents, even though Ike's been unbelievable. So for my winner, I'm going to go with St. Mary's here to actually pull off the win and upset Gonzaga as the 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm going to go Gonzaga over St. Mary's. I do think St. Mary's does beat Santa Clara. They've just been shutting the water off on teams. That's when they're their best. They have a little bit of scoring and they have the ability to just decide the opponent's not going to score any more points with like 10 minutes left, and they're back to doing that. By the way, I have a trivia question for you. A little bit of a difficult one. When was the last time a team currently in the West Coast Conference that's not named Gonzaga or St. Mary's made it to the finals? The reason I say currently is because BYU has made it a couple times, but they're not in the West Coast Conference anymore. So when was the last time a team you see on the screen right now that's not Gonzaga or St. Mary's made it to the finals?
Man, I feel like LMU did it sometime in the 2010s.
Nope. 2008.
Yeah. 2008.
There you go.
Oh,
The
wow.
Toreros won in 2008. That was the last time the finals was not Gonzaga St. Mary's or I guess BYU in the mix there. But yeah,
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it continues just the way this format is set up. But I'm going to go with Gonzaga to win this one. The last conference to talk about, and we've agreed we don't have a lot to talk about here, but we got the Patriot League. Navy. Tell us about Navy, I guess, because I think it's pretty clear that they are just far and away the best team here, but just give our troops some love here.
Yeah, I mean, they won the conference by 6 games. I hate to be anticlimactic to end this because there are so many exciting races, and you saw me and Dan have different opinions on almost every conference, which just shows how competitive they are this year. But if any team besides Navy wins, then that's going to be the biggest upset in all of March Madness, even if a 16 seed beats a 1 seed. Like, that's just how dominant they've been this year, and also how bad the rest of the conference has been. They've got a guy, Austin Benini. Was the preseason player of the year, I believe, and he's definitely backed that up. And they have a great center as well, Kehoe. Horrible free throw shooter, but he gets rebounds. He dominates the post and does everything you want a center to do. Hoagie was really the only team that posed a threat to them, but they've slid as of late. And Lehigh's kind of taken their spot. But like I said, if any team even competes with Navy, that's a win in my book for them.
All right. Any final thoughts on mid-major conference tournaments season? Again, that was the first 12, so we'll have the next 12 to 14-ish next week, as well as the power conference previews. But any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you have plans this week or next week or the week after, then cancel them because this is the most fun time of the year. You have 360 teams with probably 80% of them knowing that if they lose this, their seasons are done. So they're playing the hardest they can. We get upsets. We get teams in like the Sun Belt who are playing 3 games in 3 days. You have teams who are hot and remain hot. You got players who come out of nowhere and become stars. So all these storylines happen. The media might not cover them, but that doesn't mean that you can't watch them. So make sure you're turning on your TV every day. If you love midday hoops, it's going to be on starting, I think, Wednesday. So when you're doing your work, when you're at school, anything like that, you got something to watch. So really exciting time of the year. Make sure you're watching and make sure you're following us as well on our socials because we'll be keeping you updated as well. And like Dan mentioned, check out part 2 next week with all the big Power 5 conferences as well.
All right, perfect wrap-up, Ariel. Couldn't have said it any better myself. That'll do it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and take care. We'll see you next time.